Indiana Basketball Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. As always, the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online casino or sports book that's right for you. So make sure you check them out at betting.net. I am your co-host for the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, as always, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Okay. You know, disappointed after the game, but other than that, it's another day to look to the future.
Hmm. All right. It's another day to look to the future. What is that future, Steve? Is that an NIT first round home game?
Well, I think that would be the safest bet that's available out there right now, but it's not all lost entirely. We all said going into this was a game that Indiana desperately had to win to what I thought give themselves a better than 50% chance of making the dance in March. The next best thing we hoped for would be a close loss. 2 points is close enough to me, and really Indiana had some opportunities to tie or win the game with a little bit of basketball. I don't know what word to use, but they whatever it was, and it'll come to me at some point. They didn't have it in the last couple minutes of the game. And now I think that they're in a situation now where I think they need to probably get to the finals of the Big Ten tournament. Uh, I'm sure we'll debate that between you and I. One of the things they put up in the game was it appears if things stopped right there today before the game was over, we would play Michigan in the first round. And then the winner of that game would go on to take on Wisconsin. I think that's one of the easier pathways for Indiana to get into the semifinals, and then move on if they can with another good performance, with a rare good performance for 40 minutes, which is what they need to do, and get themselves in a championship game. And then things start swaying. But right now, they're totally dependent on too many other factors happening now. They've got to catch somebody not playing their best game, and they've got to hope there are no big upsets in the smaller conferences where they've got to take up two spots for those games where normally you just would take the conference winner from one of the lesser conferences and not the Power Fives. Where they start getting odd winners winning their tournaments, that takes away spots, at large spots for teams like Indiana, which are clearly bubble teams. So it's a lot of what we're used to right now since 2016 or even before that is just sitting around now with pins and needles for the next week and then watching the selection show and having a better chance than not of being disappointed.
Yeah, and when we look at the stats for today's game, you would actually think Indiana won the game. They outshot Purdue 43% to 39%. The three-point shooting killed them. They were 25%, Purdue 37. But Indiana was 100% from the free throw line, 10 for 10. Purdue missed 7 free throws. Purdue did out-rebound Indiana 38-34. This was a game that could have been won. IU only had 9 turnovers. And what's the reason for the loss? Because when we look at the starting five, I mean, all of them have decent numbers except for Parker Stewart, who was terrible in his 32 minutes. I mean, Xavier Johnson did some good things. Miller Kopp played well today. I mean, Xavier Johnson, had 18 points, 12 assists. I mean, he played his ass off. Rob Fennessy, I thought played pretty well for the short time he's played over the last month to come into this game and play like that. I still don't understand Jordan Geronimo getting only 13 minutes, and Race Thompson pretty much disappeared in the last few minutes of the game.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that was Race Thompson's fault. I think that was a little thing going on there between Xavier Johnson and Trace Jackson Davis trying to run that two man, which worked well when they got it done. But the problem is that they went to it so many times. it just became easy to defend. You just switch off or drop your big back and just and let the guy come. I mean, that's an easy defense if you know it's coming as frequently as Indiana started trying to run with it. And they started just taking the pass away to Trace. And then when you've got Xavier in there amongst the trees and, the aircraft carriers that are in there, it's hard for him to get a legitimately good shot off when it did. In my time, I've never been one to try and analyze a game based 50% on stats.
No, this where I would go
Stats
with
don't,
this.
because stats, this is a perfect example of stats don't tell the story here.
I know,
This is
and
competitive heart.
that's my point, though.
Yeah, this is competitive heart. The last play they ran was a simple play. It's called screen the screener. Pick the picker. I mean, God, my sixth grade team ran it.
Yeah, you're talking about the Miller Cop pass.
Well, I'm talking about the last play when, Miller thrown into Trace Jackson Davis, and it goes right through Trace's hands. Trace gets the ball.
It got tipped away. I mean, he never got it.
It looked to me like it hit Trace's hands. If it hit your hands, you can catch it.
It didn't hit his hands.
Okay, it looked to me like it did. Anyway, the whole play, there's just not a Christmas in that play. I mean, you would think these guys this play is for their season now. They've got to make this bucket, tie it up, take a chance to get on the line, get the ball. They had the right mentality and the right idea. But the execution, if you watch that play in it's slow motion, which I did, you got Ray's just kind of lollygagging out of the way, not making a crisp, sharp dart out there trying to draw somebody like they're setting something up on the perimeter, because Race can hit the jumper, the three, and it's all a lollygag. It was kind of a lethargic pass, a lethargic effort to get the ball, and the result was a direct turnover with 3, 6, 7 seconds to go, something like that.
0.3 seconds. Yeah, I mean, it was bad. There was 6 or 7 seconds left, and then on top of that, you get Xavier Johnson for some reason pulling up to try to draw a foul from like 35 or 40 feet away.
I mean,
this whole damn thing was stupid.
Well, you can sit here and just continue to find mistakes, but sometimes the mistakes are so obvious. This is like the second or third game now that the coaching staff has been caught with their pants down with no timeout in the last minute of the ball game. In terms of what I'm thinking, you need to have somebody keeping aware of what your timeout situation is on the bench, and you need to really start saving one timeout to make sure you're drawing up a play with 5, 10, 15 seconds to go, 20 seconds to go. But the last minute of the game, Indiana was out of timeouts.
So actually, no, Steve, you're wrong. The last 5 minutes of the game, Indiana was without a timeout.
Was it that long? They were without a see, and that's even worse, because you've got to be able to have a timeout there at the end to have one in reserve in case you get trapped. You got to get out of the trap, or if you're in a situation like Indiana was in, where we need to set up a crisp play.
Yeah, but Steve, in defense of the team and not having timeouts, have we seen them at the end of a game call a timeout, run a crisp play, and win a game? It's very rare.
No, we have not. But I'm thinking there's a first time for everything. And I just think that if this team is not untalented, Mike. This is not an untalented basketball team that doesn't have the talent to play in the tournament. What it doesn't have is the competitive spirit to play in the tournament.
Oh, I disagree. I think the competitive spirit was there today. I think
it was there for 30 minutes.
No, I mean, the competitive execution was not there.
Well,
but, I mean, you can't say they didn't play hard.
All right, execution. Okay, I'll change. I defer. I retract my statement and reiterate competitive execution. Correct. To me, it's the same thing. Spirit and execution are just getting after it hard and being crisp and clean and sharp and getting and setting good picks, good screens, making good sharp cuts off those, and making good passes. And having your hands ready to catch the ball or be in a position to shoot. And when this team gets, it seems to be when they get a little tired, they get lethargic or a little bit lazy, and they start just firing up threes rather than keep dumping the ball inside. This is a basketball team that they should not go down court 80% of the time where the ball is not touched by either Race or Trace or Durr inside. One of their bigs. That offense is set up for that. And when we do that, and we started off in the first half, and Xavier and Trace and Race was busting his butt. They were getting the ball to him, and he was making things happen on his own. We were scoring. We were fighting, battling, staying with them, and then we get like an up tempo kick that we don't control the up tempo. Purdue controls it. We get just running with them, and Helter Skelter breaks out, and our methodicalness goes away entirely, which to me is the competitive execution you want to talk about.
Well,
we start just flying down and doing things and letting things happen.
All right, real quick, Joseph Michael says, what was IU's field goal percentage today? It was 43%. Steve, let's do this right now. I'm going to go betting.net, finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes. So you don't have to. Head over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits. All right, I'm going to go someplace I don't want to go. The players are good enough to win. They've lost repeated games like this where you don't have a timeout or you decide not to use a timeout and almost blow a game. We talked about this earlier before the show or before the game even, how it gets a little old watching Mike Woodson, instead of coaching his team, go out and continually harass referees right after a timeout. You have no timeouts at the end of it. You don't have timeouts in the last 5 minutes of the game. Now, I'm not attacking here. What I am stating is fairly obvious to me, and it's not a shot at the university. It's not a shot at anybody. This team looks like they're coached by an NBA coach. This is not the NBA. They've had 30 games to figure this out, and they still blow every time out before they get to the last 5 minutes of the game. And when I watched this, it looked to me like Indiana pretty much outplayed Purdue today, but Purdue outcoached Indiana. Because I don't think Purdue played that well. I just think at the end of the game, their guys knew what to do. Their guys knew they were going to win. Indiana hoped they were going to win.
Well, I think that's obvious, but in defense of Mike, I think it takes a little bit longer than 30 games to really get down to the nuts and bolts and learn how to coach in college basketball as opposed to coaching in the NBA. I think it's a completely different world. And I didn't ever have a lot to do with professional basketball, so I can't speak from experience on that. But there's just a complete world of difference between the two coaching styles. And I think that Mike's going to have to learn how to coach and what to coach and when to coach in college versus the NBA. And I think that's a process that comes. I want to believe, I'm hopeful, I do believe this time next year you won't see a lot of these mistakes being made. And we will have forgotten about this year. So I don't think it's an incompetency on Mike's part. I think it's just a lack of understanding to some degree.
Wait a second.
Isn't
that kind of incompetency? If you have a lack of understanding of something you've been doing for the last 30 games?
Well, but I don't think when I say a lack of competency, it's a lack of learning skills learned yet. I just don't think he's learned it yet. Like to not think about having a timeout with a minute and a half.
Wait a second, Steve, because I don't know too many NBA teams that would want to go the last 5 minutes of a game without a timeout.
No, but the NBA also has TV commercials every time a ball dribbles off your foot or out of bounds. You ever watch the end of an NBA game? It takes 18 minutes to
Well,
play
and the
18
great
seconds
thing
worth of
there would be
basketball.
this. I would like to go back and see Hawks and Knicks games to see if maybe those games ended 10 minutes quicker than everybody else's because they didn't have any
Well,
timeouts to
yeah, but
use.
it doesn't matter because you're still in the same arenas. You're still in professional versus college. It's just a learning curve Mike's going to have to get through.
I know. I just don't buy that. I don't know how a
Well,
64-year-old man that's been around basketball his whole life can't fucking coach it. How about that? I mean, this.
I
I
don't
sit
think he
here and
can't not coach it. The team plays well. It plays well for 30 minutes of a game. It just cannot finish or close a game. And when they do, it's because some player like a Rob Finney or Xavier Johnson or a Trace Jackson Davis get scalding hot. We don't play our way into a win in this game. We shoot our way in because some player just lights out that day.
That's kind of.
And you think back of all the quad one wins we've had and the big wins we've had, it's because some player just lit it up.
Yeah, and the problem is this: when you say all of, there's like what, 3 or 4 of them?
No, there's two. Don't we have just two quad one wins?
I don't know. I think it's more than that, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. Well, the quad one system changes now because teams are getting wins, big wins. The whole quad one thing. Indiana may end up with 8 quad one wins by the time it's all said and done. We don't know.
They won't.
No, not likely. But I'm saying teams will move in and out of quad one a lot right now because of tournament play and things like that.
I'm just telling you this from the talent on this team. When I looked at the schedule, and the schedule is weak up front. I mean, this is the thing. We could sit here and say, are they in the tournament or are they not? If they would have played a respectable schedule the way Indiana used to, we wouldn't even be having a conversation. This would be, can we get above 500 and go to the NIT?
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but you can't dwell on things that happen in November at this point in time. The only thing we could dwell on up until about 30 minutes ago was the 40 minutes that were going on at Mackey that day. Now all we can dwell on is what's coming up in Indianapolis on Thursday against either Michigan or whoever we end up being slotted to play. That's all we can do. We have to win that game or our season's done. Or we're going to the NIT, which means our season's done. So, I mean, that's the boat we put ourselves into. I don't fault anybody else. We had every chance to win that game today. I blame us.
I didn't have a damn thing to do with it, Steve. I was just sitting, and I sat in my lucky
us,
chair.
Yeah, but you're not us.
You're not us either. None of us are us.
No.
If this was us, damn it, Bobby Knight would be here.
You're us. Okay, when you got one of these, you're us.
You don't. So
yeah,
you're us if you're playing right now. Because see, your us was with Bobby Knight. This is different. This is shit, and it's tiresome.
Okay.
I mean, it is. I mean,
I'm not going to go down that road yet with this program.
Oh, no. It's only been 20 fucking years, right? So why would we go down that road?
Because the program has changed.
It hasn't. What has changed, Steve? What is different from the Archie Miller days? We've won 18 games. We've lost 13. That sounds pretty much like an Archie Miller record. At one point, we looked like we were going to be in the tournament for sure. Then we go on a 5 or 6 game losing streak. Then we get a couple nice wins. And then we lose a couple close games, one of them at home, to freaking Rutgers. As long as Indiana is losing at home to Rutgers, there is nothing resembling what used to be us.
I thought you didn't want to be part of us.
I'm not a part of us, because if I was, I'd be playing. You can't be a part of us.
Mike, what's your solution? Mike, what's your solution?
Dude, I mean...
well, okay. Don't come to the table bitching if you don't have a solution.
Well, you know what, Steve? I have a solution.
What?
A new coach.
After one season, you want to dump
He never should have been hired to begin with. He was hired to placate the old fuckers like us who wanted somebody from old Indiana basketball. The only problem is this.
Wow.
We can never go back and get Bobby Knight. And we can't go back and get Bobby Knight because somebody sat next to him or played for him because... I'm sorry, the best coaches. How good a basketball player was Mike Krzyzewski or Bobby Knight? We're bringing in a guy here who's one of the greatest players in the history of the school, and this has been a failure. Now, we can wait another year. That's fine. We can wait another 3 years. It doesn't matter because if it doesn't get any better, it's just like it was the last 20. The problem is this, Steve. They hired a competent coach in Archie Miller. I think that Mike Woodson is a competent NBA coach that should have figured this out. I still don't think the issue is with the basketball team. I think it's the overall people that run that school in general. There's something wrong here because it doesn't matter who the coach is. I mean, you can sit there and laugh, but Mike Davis has been successful since he left.
Yeah, and the people, yeah, no,
Oh, I know. There's no way that an administration could ever hinder a head coach.
the administration's changed over 100%, completely
Yeah.
different administration.
Okay.
That has most of the administration today, except for the AD, has no ties to Bob Knight.
It has nothing to do with that. The administration is still the same because you're never going to move away from those type of administrators in most college campuses anymore.
I don't agree with you.
Okay, then we'll blame it on Mike. I'd rather not.
I'm just thinking that there's a
Steve, you can't go through life and work a job even for one day and not be judged for the job you've done. So this is the thing. I love Mike Woodson, but I can't sit here and tell everybody if we wait another year, everything will be all right. I don't know that. I hope that, but when we look at this,
of course not. But I'm going to believe that right now.
Well, you can believe that, but the thing is this: we believed that with Archie Miller. And we kept saying, give him another year. As soon as he gets players, he'll be fine. When I look at this roster, the couple guys you're losing, if Trace leaves, I don't know that this team's going to be any better next year. They may be significantly worse. Now, they've got some recruits coming in, but how many times have we heard it? Remember when Romeo Langford was going to save us all and take us and win us a national championship in his 1 year? It never happened. Why didn't it? The kid goes to the NBA. He's now starting to be a little successful. But, I mean, it's just, there's something wrong here. Any place where you haven't won in a long time, it all comes back to culture. That culture was started probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that culture has not changed. I don't know why it hasn't changed. You've had good men like Mike Woodson. You've had good men, a good coach like Archie Miller. Tom Creed's a dumbass. But when you look at the rest of these guys, you also look at the Kelvin Sampson hiring. I know it was a long time, but who in the hell would do that? I mean, it's mind-scratching things just happen here constantly. This should be a no-brainer to be able to win in Indiana. And, I mean, you should. I mean, if you get the best players in the state, you should win. Right now, the Purdue Boilermakers are the best program in the state of Indiana. And I would say this, over the last 20 years, Notre Dame and Butler have been better than Indiana.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with that.
Indiana cannot be the fourth best basketball program in the state of Indiana. That's impossible.
I agree.
And that's the issue. So
I agree.
And no, I would not fire Mike Woodson right now. I can't say that I would. I can't say that I wouldn't because I don't know the situation he's in. I know this, for coaching for over 30 years at every level, sometimes there's people in charge over top of you that can really make shit difficult for you. I'm not saying that's what happens or is happening here, but I know it did happen for a significant amount of time after Coach Knight was gone. And I really don't expect Mike Woodson to not be able to coach. And I saw Archie Miller coach in Dayton, and I know Archie Miller could coach. So this makes no sense to me. There is a culture issue here somewhere that for some reason has not been able to be fixed. And we can't just pick up a guy who played in 1980 or a guy who played in 2000 for Bob Knight and expect him to be Bob Knight.
Okay. I don't have those. I don't harbor those same feelings. I think it's going to take time. It's going to take a couple of years to get it going. I just think changing a culture doesn't happen overnight.
It does.
So it does if you're Vince Lombardi or you're Bill
does.
Belichick or you're somebody who is just one of those God-given tapped on the head coaches, that comes into a program and says, we're changing this. They're just brilliant coaches. They had that ability. Phil Jackson with the Bulls had that ability.
That's the NBA. It's not the same thing. Hell, they were in the conference semifinals the year before.
He
He
changed their culture.
he changed their culture from Doug Collins to allow Michael Jordan to do whatever the hell Michael Jordan wanted to do,
And
and then
Michael
everything worked
Jordan
fine.
added to that culture by bringing in four other players on the court and made them an equal part of what was going to happen. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm looking, we can do a show at the end of the season, and Mike deserves that before we do it, because he could turn around and win the Big Ten tournament, and we're all wishing this show
No,
never
I'm
happened.
just telling you. I'm just telling you my opinion now. I'll never wish this show did not happen because this show should have probably happened a month ago.
I don't believe that there's any reason to fault Mike any more than anybody else right now.
He's the coach.
I think it's just not not an environment or a culture yet where I'm sure the university, the athletic department, or the basketball operations want this to be in. Maybe they've got too many chefs. Maybe bringing Dane Fife in at this point in time wasn't a good idea. Maybe bringing Thad Matta in wasn't a good idea. Maybe just leaving Mike alone and let him do his thing was the best thing for this team.
I think what you're saying right there is dead on, because this is the thing. If I'm going
too many chefs in the kitchen right now, and you can tell Mike's kind of frustrated by it.
Hey, we talked about this, if you remember.
We've had this conversation, right?
And the thing is this: if I'm a head coach, I don't want you bringing my replacement in to be my assistant coach. That's just not a good thing.
And that's a lot of speculation. Nobody's made that comment to anybody.
Anytime you are 65 years old and the other kid is a hot coaching candidate, and he's what, early mid 30s?
I understand.
He's the next guy. I mean, I'm just telling you, it just is.
I'm just trying to cool the jets on the.
There's no cool the jets.
Conspiracy theories already.
It's a conspiracy theory that we don't do anything in the last 3 minutes of games. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Well, I think that's something that
it's obvious.
I think that's going to reflect back at the end of the season when Mike does some self-evaluation and looks at these games and breaks down the last 2 to 3 minutes of each game and sees where mistakes were made, and hopefully he learns from them. Right now, he's fighting for his playoff life.
Which the way you do that is watch the last 2 to 3 minutes of the game you just played and change stuff. You don't wait till the end of the year.
Yeah, I understand that, and yeah.
I mean, I don't. If you go
armchair
2-7,
coaching's always 2020.
Well, you know what? It's not armchair coaching because you can sit there and watch it happen in live time.
And the thing is, Mike could be making changes in the huddle and things that we're not even privy to here, and the team's just not executing it.
Well, that's.
his fault. I still say, as good as Xavier Johnson is, he's a loose cannon. He is a loose cannon on the court.
There's all kinds.
Now he's upped his game. I think right now he may be the best player on that team right now in terms of getting things done on the court.
I can tell you this, Steve. If you don't execute, it's coaching.
If what?
If you don't execute, it's coaching. You teach them, coach them to be able to do stuff.
I've seen a lot of, and I'm sure you've coached a lot of times where you put in plays that if they're executed well will win you games or score you touchdowns, and the players just didn't execute it. What the hell?
Tell you, that is
I told
fault.
you what to do here. If you listened to me and done it.
But you have to teach people how to do stuff. I mean, that's why you're a coach. That's what a coach is. I have never lost a game and thought, well, my team lost that game. Now, any game that's lost that I coach is my fault. Any team that's won, that's on the players. They did what I asked. They won the game. They get the credit. The blame falls squarely on the guy who's in charge.
All right.
And I'm telling you, 2-7 over the last 9 games of the season is not acceptable. I don't care if it's your first year or your 80th year. So I'm not going to sit here and act like it's fine.
In today's game, where were the flaws?
The last 5 minutes. I mean, really, I thought the team played really well. I mean, they got down
we took
early,
the lead the last 5 minutes of the game. We had a 3 or 5 point lead.
What I'm saying is the last 5 minutes is where they lost it.
We had a 3-point lead, I think, in the last 5 minutes.
And that's my point, because we had probably 2 or 3 possessions where we could have extended that lead, and we failed on it. And a lot of times they were piss poor shots that shouldn't have been taken.
Well, bad shooting, but bad shot selection was what came to my mind.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
and just a
lack of be disciplined,
lack of crispness in their movement or ball movement offensively, even really defensively. We had one sequence where I think Purdue got 3 or 4 offensive
Yeah.
rebound attempts at him.
And that's usually
And I'm thinking,
one,
is
two.
anybody going to block anybody out here and make them go over your back? Just get a butt in somebody's crotch, and block them out one time. See if they come over your back and stop them from rebounding and just keeping possession attempts until they finally get the big 7-foot guy who couldn't get 3 inches off the ground but was tall enough. He still could dunk and damn near took the rim down with him.
Yeah. It's amazingly that kid. I mean, Purdue is not going to. They're not winning a national championship.
No, this is not
year.
one of Purdue's best basketball teams.
No, I mean the record looks good, but
yeah, and they've lost.
Yeah,
They
had
had a 6-game. They had a 6-game losing streak at one time too, I guess, this season.
No, they lost 6 games all season, but they lost I think 3 or 4 road games.
3 or 4 in a row.
They had a 2-game losing streak coming into this game. But, I mean, the same thing again. They don't execute at the end of the games usually. And that's the scary part because they did against Indiana.
So does Indiana have a chance to make the dance?
I would say the way things stand now, you at least have to beat Michigan and Wisconsin. With that being said, I mean, how could we like our chances? We're 2-7 in our last 9 games. I mean, I think they can beat Michigan. I think they could beat Wisconsin. I think they could win the Big Ten tournament. But I have not seen anything where I would want to sit here and say it's going to happen. I think they'll play Michigan. I think they'll beat Michigan because Juwan Howard will be back as the coach. He's a shitty coach. I mean, Mike Woods has had success somewhere. Juwan Howard's Juwan Howard. The farther they get away from John Beilein, the worse their program will get. So you could beat Michigan. But then the issue is Wisconsin, and they're going to have the best player on the court. And they're a tough, scrappy team. I think they just beat Purdue the other night by a last-second shot. Beating Wisconsin's going to be tough. But if they can beat Michigan, Wisconsin, you got a shot. As long as your heart's beating, you got a shot.
All right.
And Xavier Johnson could go off for 40 in back-to-back games, and we could win both games.
I think Indiana dances.
Yeah. For what?
I like the draw they got.
You do?
No,
Wisconsin's a horrible draw.
No, I don't think so.
I would rather play Wisconsin.
We played them tough both games. We lost both games to them, but we played them tough.
And we lost.
I agree.
Any other options? I think Iowa would be an easier matchup. But if you look at these other teams, Steve, I mean, I would much rather play Wisconsin than play Illinois. Yeah, I'll give you that. But Purdue, I would rather play Purdue than Wisconsin. So it's the second best draw we can have. How about that? And I think the Michigan game is very winnable.
Yes.
Because they're a team that's kind of like Indiana. You never know what you're going to get. They're either going to be on fire and playing great, or they're totally going to fall apart.
Any stats that stand out? I do not have a stat sheet in front of me. I've not.
This was a game where the stats didn't really matter. There was
because I think we outstatted them just about everywhere.
We outstatted them. Hell, we didn't miss a free throw. When's that happen?
Yeah.
We only had 9 turnovers.
First time I've heard of that all year.
We had 9 turnovers. They had 11 turnovers. We held them to under 40% shooting. We shot 43. The thing that stands out to me is the 3-pointers. The 5 for 20. I mean, we shot the ball well from 2-point range. 5 for 20?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and you know, this is not a team that needs to rely on 3-pointers to win.
Because you kind of are when you're shooting 20 of them. That's my point.
Well, but we don't need to because of our inside play and our guard penetration from Johnson and Finney.
The 3-pointers
Finney made a couple great moves down the end toward the hole.
Steve, the 3-pointers to me, this team should probably shoot 10 to 14 a game unless they're
at most.
Yeah, at most. I mean, on average, 8 to 10, 14 if you're actually shooting the ball well.
If the ball's not going in and being touched by Thompson, Durr, or Jackson, 80% of the time they get the ball across half court offensively, then Indiana's offense is not running at peak efficiency.
Well, and I think this.
You just got to get it down to those guys and beat teams pummeling them inside.
When you talked about Xavier Johnson and how he seems kind of out of control sometimes,
yeah.
The thing that strikes me is Jaden Ivey for Purdue. He played horrible today. He was 2 for 11. But the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game, when the ball was in his hands, he controlled
the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Xavier Johnson's played great.
He's been coached in the execution phase of the game to where he knows that he knows at that point in time, ball control is the most important thing he can contribute to that team at that point in time. Not scoring. They had the lead. They didn't need scoring. They needed ball control. They needed not to turn the ball over and run time off the clock. And then
Yeah,
look for the easy shot, which they got most times.
yeah, and once again, Trace Jackson Davis, the biggest play that stands out to me all day on him, and he played well, 15 points, I think 6 or 7 rebounds. But the play that stood out to me was the big 7'4" guys on him. He's like 16, 17 feet from the basket. He gets a wide open shot. The dude's not going to come out on him, and he misses it. Once again, if he had a 15 to 20 foot, if he
Sure.
was just an average shooter from 15 to 20 feet, I think Indiana would have 3 more wins right now.
Agreed. And that's something, again, it should have been worked on all season long. Maybe
Actually,
it
it
was.
should have been worked on since 8th grade, and it
Maybe
obviously
it
wasn't.
maybe it was being worked on all season long. I don't know. Except I have not been to a practice.
They need to work on it differently, Steve.
I think it's sad that the last 9 games we go 2-7 because I thought we were solidly in and more going to be excited about where we're going to play, not if we're
Yeah, if
going
we'd
to
have
play.
been 4-5, we'd have been fine.
Yeah, but right now we're in a boat to where we have to come out guns of fire on Wednesday or Thursday, the 10th, and play extremely well. We have to get basically to the semifinals to even get a good sniff or a good look, have a shot. And then we got to have some help on the outside, but like I said, of major upsets in the conference tournaments. The perceived favorites in the small conference tournaments have to win, so we don't start taking up at-large places, filling 2 spots.
Yeah, because
with a 4-17 or 4-22 tournament, conference champion, and then the team that went 19-3, who was earmarked to go, they'd still want to put them in, and that's what'll kill Indiana, and not being able to get to the semifinals. So we'll just see.
And when you look at this, I mean, a team like, let's see, Loyola, Chicago, and Xavier, if you match them up with IU, I don't think it turns out good for us, even though Loyola Marymount or Loyola Chicago is a mid-major, because if you look at their schedule, they lost by a point to Michigan State. They lost by 5 points to Auburn. They beat Arizona State by 20. They beat DePaul from the Big East. They beat Vanderbilt from the SEC. They beat San Francisco, who is probably, that's the other thing, the West Coast Conference out there, you're probably going to get at least 3 teams in this year, or at least 2 teams. And if you were to get a team like San Francisco, who I think is like 20-8 right now, to win an upset and win that conference tournament, all of a sudden that's another team that goes. So when you look at it, I mean, you look at Xavier, I think Xavier's got like 3 times more quad 1 wins, and those are the teams on the bubble. I think Indiana, you can make a case over Loyola Chicago, but what's going to happen there is when they do take in the tournament history for the teams, and it was just a couple of years ago, Loyola Chicago was in the freaking Final Four. So Indiana, you have to look back 20 years to see a Final Four. And who would have ever thought that we would lose that battle with Loyola Chicago?
Yeah. No, and we're 2 games below 500 in the conference, I believe.
Yeah, 9-11, I think.
We did not hit 20 wins, so.
And the only way to do that is to win 2 games.
Win 2 games. Yeah, there's no more other secret sauce formulas. It's just they have to win a minimum of 2 games, preferably 3, and then they'll get consideration if there's not a lot of upsets in the smaller conference tournaments.
Well, and to me, the thing that worries me is this team that went from like 9 or 10 guys at the start of the year, really getting significant minutes, are now down to like 7. And to be able to win in this tournament, you got to play what? Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday?
Yeah, you got to get some rest for some of these guys.
Yeah, you got to play 3 games in a row. So guys like Jordan Geronimo, Tamar Bates, Rob Bennessy,
they need to
Michael
get more
Durr,
minutes.
They've got to play well. I mean, when they get in,
they have to play well when they get in the game. Well. That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
They've got to make contributions too. So it goes back to the same thing we both talked about: execution, Mike.
Yeah. So to me, coaching wise, if I know I'm playing a Big Ten conference tournament and I'm a week or 2 ago, I start playing those guys a little bit more. And he has played Geronimo a little bit more. Durham Bates didn't play much today. They have shown flashes of being able to do things. But, I mean, really, when you look at the Big Ten, I mean, I don't know that there is a hands down best team. I don't know when I look at the Big Ten, even though the conference is strong just because of depth. I mean, is there any team in the Big Ten right now that you would think could make it to the Final Four or national championship game?
No.
I mean, because when I
Michigan,
look,
I mean, I would not ever bet against Michigan State just because of Izzo, but I don't think.
I would just from watching them play.
Yeah, I was trying to get there. This is not anywhere near one of Izzo's championship caliber basketball teams. So I don't think there's a team in the Big Ten that's capable of getting to the Final Four this year.
I mean, maybe if you get a little luck. I mean, if Illinois could keep Coburn out of foul trouble for 4 consecutive games, you might be able to make the Final Four. But I don't know that I've seen him stay out of foul trouble for even 2 straight games.
When you start using if with teams, then you start saying
that's all you can use with Big Ten teams, I think.
Right, that's all you can use is if. If this doesn't happen, we can put a big team in the Final Four.
Actually, I think
don't say that about the ACC or the ACC, the SEC or the Big 12, the power conferences. Indiana has a lot of, the Big Ten. There's a lot of, if this happens, we'll be okay.
Well, Indiana and the Big Ten have allowed over the last 20 or 30 years all these conferences to catch them. I think the Big 12 is the best conference this year. Hell, there's 3 or 4 teams I can see making the Final Four there. Yeah. When I see 3 or 4 teams. If everything goes right, you got a chance. Right. I don't see that now. So hopefully we can get a couple wins and they can make the first 4 in Dayton because I got credentialed just in case. So
there you go. All right. So we're assuming right now that Indiana's going to open up with Michigan. I don't know that that's final yet.
It's not final yet because there's still games going on.
Yeah. 2 nights ago it was Michigan State, and now it's moved to Michigan.
Yeah, because there's still games to be played tomorrow too. So
right.
Yeah, because
the Big Ten is not finished at this point in time.
Yeah, Nebraska. Actually, there's 5 games tomorrow in the Big Ten.
So a lot's going to change between now and then. We may end up playing Illinois in the first game. Who knows?
We're not playing Illinois.
Well, no, they're going to get a bye. So second game, it's going to shift. Indiana just has to learn to execute in the last 5 minutes of a ball game, and I think it would be solidly in the tournament right now if it could just learn to execute efficiently in the last 5 minutes of a ball game. It has not gotten there yet. And I think as a whole, the coaching staff needs to be able to coach efficiently in the last 5 minutes of a ball game too.
All right. So when do you want to do the Big Ten tournament preview? Do you want to do it Tuesday night?
Sure.
Okay. Let's go Tuesday night at 8:00. Sound good?
Very good.
All right, so come back to us Tuesday night for the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show, where we will look at the Big Ten Conference Tournament up and down through every game. Me and Steve will give you the winners, and me and Steve have been known to nail some winners, haven't we, Steve? It's just that damn Dan that can't get any right.
Are we bringing Dan on the show for that?
Oh, no, we're not bringing Dan on the show for that.
Oh, let's do.
We'll see.
He's got Rutgers out there. He's a Jersey boy.
We'll see. Actually, he's got St. John's because he's been covering St. John's.
Well, but why is he not covering Rutgers?
Because St. John's plays at Madison Square Garden, and it's cooler to hang out there than Rutgers' old barn. All right, guys, remember, betting.net finds the best promotions and offers bonus codes so you don't have to. Head over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits. We will be back on Tuesday night with the Big Ten Tournament Special. Steve, you can follow at SRisley34. You can follow me at Grilling Truth. Is there anything you want to add before we get off here, Steve?
No, no. I'll just say this. I think Indiana makes the dance.
Okay. All right, so Indiana's going to the prom. Let's see if they can make March Madness, though. We're going to wrap it up for now. For Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grilling Truth, where the legends speak.